Clashes break out among crowds gathered outside a courthouse, delivering its verdict on an Israeli soldier accused of unlawfully killing an injured Palestinian man last year. The Slovakian Prime Minister urges EU nations to stop calling for referendums like the UK and Italy as they pose a threat to the integrity of the Union. Social media turns on CNN after the news giant shows pictures from a video game as proof of alleged Russian hacking. Your Wednesday Worldwide News Headlines, live here from Moscow. Thanks for joining us. It's RT International. Clashes have broken out between police and supporters of an Israeli soldier accused of unlawfully killing an injured Palestinian man last year. That crowd is gathered outside the courtroom where the soldier Azaria is awaiting a verdict. He was earlier greeted with some applause as he arrived to hear his fate. Last March, Azaria shot and killed a Palestinian man laying wounded and motionless on the ground after having reportedly stabbed an Israeli soldier. Just to warn you, you may find the following footage disturbing. The Palestinian lying on the ground was suspected of carrying out a stabbing attack. He had been wounded himself by Israeli soldiers minutes before. Now, his killing was branded as an execution and immoral by various human rights organizations. However, the reaction of many Israelis has been quite different. Well, we can now cross live to RT's Paula Sleer, standing by for us in Tel Aviv. Paula, how much support has the soldier been receiving from the Israeli public during the build-up to today's verdict?
Well, this is a big court case here in Israel, and it has divided Israeli society. The scenes that we're seeing in front of and outside the courthouse are hugely emotive. In the last hour, clashes broke out between the supporters, hundreds of who turned out to show their support for the soldier Elor Azaria and the security forces. 2 people were arrested, but those clashes are now under control. Now, the judge is still delivering his verdict. We haven't yet heard the final verdict, but we are expecting that the soldier will be found guilty. And if he is found guilty of manslaughter, he will be sentenced in about 1 month, and he could face several years in prison. So there is concern that those clashes in front of the courthouse could resume again. Now, the judge called the testimony of the soldier to, quote, evolving and evasive. He said that he acted coldly and calculated, which does not suggest that he was acting towards any kind of immediate danger. The judge has been speaking for the better part of 2 hours, so that is inflaming tensions both inside the courthouse and outside. The soldier himself claims that he only shot this Palestinian man because he thought he had an explosive belt on him. Many here in Israel think that this justified his actions, as indeed was the argument put forward by the defense team of the soldier. The Israel Democracy took a poll and found that 60% of those asked agreed that the soldier's actions were justified. And even further, in that same poll, 46% of people said that a Palestinian who carries out a terror attack should be killed whether or not he still poses a threat. Now, it's not just the Israeli public who are supporting the soldier. A number of politicians have come out and made public statements on his behalf. Let's take a listen.
The entire process was polluted even before it began. I hope he is acquitted, and if he isn't acquitted, I believe he should get immediate pardon so he doesn't go to jail.
Everyone who stabs Jews or harms innocent people should be killed.
There are clear instructions to the Israeli police. As soon as a police officer feels danger to himself or any other citizen, he needs to shoot according to the regulations.
Now, statements like these have prompted Human Rights Watch to put out a report condemning the fact that such statements are made, saying that they encourage this kind of behavior. There have been more than 150 instances since October last year in which security forces fatally shot Palestinian adults and children that are suspected or were suspected of trying to stab, run over or shoot Israelis in both Israel and the West Bank. And during the same period, Palestinian assailants have killed 33 Israelis, including passers-by and security officials, also in Israel and the West Bank. Human Rights Watch has repeatedly condemned Palestinian attacks against Israeli civilians. And we're just hearing now from the courthouse that although there is still no verdict, the judge has just said that there is enough evidence for a conviction, that there was no justification for the shooting. So we are expecting that guilty verdict to come any moment now.
All right, RT's Paula Slier live in Tel Aviv. Thank you. Now, as Paula just mentioned, Human Rights Watch did put out a report accusing senior Israeli politicians of encouraging a shoot-to-kill policy. Now, earlier we spoke to Ahmed Ben Chemsi, a Human Rights Watch representative for the Middle East and North Africa.
What we know is that we documented a lot of statements, including one by Police Minister Gilad Erdan, who said that if a terrorist, that I'm quoting him, has a knife or a screwdriver, he mentioned a screwdriver in his hand, you should shoot to kill him without thinking twice. This is not just the politician speaking his mind, it's the police minister. Now, given the prevalence and prominence of statements encouraging security forces to shoot to kill, what we are asking for is that Netanyahu and other senior officials issue a strong and public-private admonition to intentionally use lethal force only when strictly necessary. There is such a thing as international human rights laws, and these laws limit the intentional lethal use of firearms, what we call shooting to kill, to very limited circumstances. And these are circumstances in which it is strictly necessary to protect one's life, and in which there is no other less extreme option.
Israeli journalist and author Gideon Levy told us that he finds the widespread support for the soldier Azaria disturbing.
He's perceived not only as someone who didn't do anything wrong, but as a national hero. And this is very, very worrying and very, very bothering anyone who wants to see a rule of law and a rule of justice here. It's very good that this trial took place, but let's remember that he's only one case, and there were many other cases very similar, with only one difference, that there were no cameras like there were in this case. It's very clear that when they executed Palestinians, it was accepted by the system as a normal behavior. Killing should be the last choice and not the first one. If the orders will be crystal clear and people who will violate those orders will be punished seriously, then it will stop at once.
As Mr. Levy just mentioned, this is not the only case where Israeli soldiers have been accused of using excessive force against Palestinians. Last year, Human Rights Watch published a report outlining the abuse of children, while other cases of a heavy-handed approach have also come to light. Again, you may find the following video potentially disturbing.
There was a fence in front of me, so I tried to jump the fence, and I fell on my face. And the soldiers, they came right behind me, picked me up, and threw me on the floor. And they punched me in the face, and I fell asleep, and I went unconscious, and I woke up in the hospital.
قوم ابعد عن نهرك.